What's up, guys? We're back here. Jason Leiden on the Conquer Athlete YouTube channel with Conquer Athlete. Now, today on these talks, I'm going to dive into power endurance. I'm talking about power endurance, not just in regards to CrossFit and mixed modal sports, but I'm going to tie it into a lot of different sports, athletes, and demands. We're going to talk about why it matters, when you should develop it, and how to actually train it the right way. Because this is one of these qualities that a lot of people throw around, but they don't always fully understand it, right? You hear the term power endurance, strength endurance, all these concepts thrown around, but you really want to understand how to do it and why you're doing it in order to maximize it and do it correctly for longevity and also success, right? And if you coach athletes who compete in mixed modal sports, play field or court sports, do combat sports, or honestly just want to be more complete as an athlete, power endurance matters. So in its simplest form, power endurance is the ability to produce high levels of force or output repeatedly over time without major drop off in performance. So it's not just about being powerful once, right? I think we can grasp that from the definition. It's not just hitting one big clean or being able to do one big extensive broad jump or one hard, 50-meter sprint or one explosive effort. It's about being able to do the explosive work over and over again while resisting fatigue and or degradation in form technique. And that's key. Power is your ability to produce force quickly, while endurance is your ability to sustain effort over time. Power endurance is where these two qualities are going to meet. It's the athletes who can keep hitting hard efforts deep into a workout. It's the athlete who can repeat sprints without falling apart. It's the athletes who can keep cycling a barbell, jumping, changing direction, attacking transitions, and expressing power even as fatigue starts climbing up and they get later in the workout, later in the rounds, later in the event. That's power endurance. So why do we need to develop it? Well, in most sports, especially mixed modal sport, the game is not just won on the best rep. It's won by your ability to maintain high output under fatigue. And this is across the board. We're talking about CrossFit, tactical games, Philly high rocks, depending on the person, mixed martial arts, etc. Right? Fresh, everybody's dangerous. Fresh, everybody can jump high, everybody can move fast, everybody looks explosive. But sport is rarely done when you're completely fresh, unless you're a track athlete going into a specific designated one track event. Sports ask you to produce force when breathing is elevated, legs are heavy, your grip is a bit cooked, your heart rate's up, and your body's begging you to slow down. That's where power endurance is going to separate people. This matters because without it, you get an athlete who is powerful on paper, but not powerful in the environment where it actually matters. Powerful in practice, powerful on show, but when the lights turn on and repeated efforts and demands are needed, and they need to express power under fatigue to win, it's not going to be there, right? And that's the problem. What does power endurance look like in real life? In mixed modal training, it might come down to repeated barbell cycling, repeated burpees with sustained explosiveness, fast box jumps late in a workout, maintaining high stroke power in the rower, holding your pace while still having pop with inside your transitions of the workout. In field sports, it's repeated sprint ability. Can you accelerate hard in the first quarter and still accelerate hard in the fourth or later on in the game, or if you have to extend that over time? In combat sports, it's your ability to throw hard combinations, wrestle explosively, scramble, shoot, defend. All these things, not just in the first round, but later on in the round and in subsequent rounds. In court sports, it's repeated jumping, cutting, changing direction, and exploding off the floor for the entire game, not just when the game starts. In Olympic lifting or strength sports, with conditioning crossover, it's the ability to sustain technical power output across multiple efforts without the system collapsing. So again, it's not just for CrossFit, it's for many, many mixed modal sports. Now, when do you want to develop it? Well, this is potentially where some coaches get a little confused. They either train it too early, too often, or they try to build it on top of a weak foundation. You do not build power endurance well if the athlete lacks basic strength, force production ability, movement quality, technical efficiency, and an aerobic base that helps them recover between efforts. So you have to make sure when inside the accumulation phase or your building phase for the athletes, you're putting in the necessary time to build these 5 properties and build them well. If you don't have these things, then what you call power endurance training just becomes really fatigue training. And that there is a difference. You have to earn the right to express repeated power. Generally, power endurance comes in stronger once an athlete has built a base level of general conditioning, a base of maximal strength or force production, and the ability to produce it, technical competency in the movements, and some level of power first. Because you can't repeatedly express what you don't have. So from a periodization standpoint, power endurance is usually developed more intentionally after a base phase, after general strength and aerobic phase, and they're established. And as you move closer to competition or sport-specific demands. That doesn't mean it never shows up early in the year. It can, right? But the dose, complexity, and specificity usually increase as the athlete gets closer to demands and or the base gets built more efficiently for what you're trying to prescribe. So who really benefits from power endurance, right? Well, pretty much everybody. Mixed modal athletes are going to benefit. That's obvious. CrossFit athletes, high rocks, functional fitness athletes, they have all different types of names of mixed modal competitions and event structures coming out. They all need power endurance throughout the entire body to do well in workouts. You have field and core sport athletes. These athletes who have repeatedly sprint ability, repeatability, change of direction, power, force boosting powers, and you have a body repeatedly, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and they need to be able to recover quick and do it again and again and again. Obviously, you can think about combat athletes, whether it's shooting, punching, kicking, repeating this, wrestling defense, taking them down, sustaining hard ground and pound game. Like that makes pretty obvious you need power endurance there as well. But what about general population? Well, they can benefit from it just in a little bit of a different way, right? For them, it may not be just about sport performance. It may be about improving work capacity, movement quality and fatigue, maintaining athleticism, maintaining just the ability to express power, which to me is part of health and longevity, right? And we need to do this. We can't let anything just fall to the wayside under the flag or the umbrella of age. But we have to dose it intelligently, right? The skill level matters. The complexity matters. We need to make sure people are strong enough for what we're trying to do, and the proper exercise selection is there. So how do you develop power endurance? And this is a big one. Well, you build power endurance by training the athletes to repeat explosive or forceful efforts while minimizing performance drop-off. This means your programming has to protect one thing: output quality. If output falls off a cliff, you are no longer training power endurance. You're just surviving, right? And that's where a lot of like CrossFit coaches are going to get it wrong. And for that matter, I won't generalize. I'll say a lot of coaches where they try to minimize rest and increase fatigue. Well, we're not really training it then, right? We got to understand the bit difference between training and testing. There are a few major ways to build it: repeated explosive efforts with incomplete rest. This can be things like short sprint repeats, sled pushes, bike sprints, row intervals, repeated med ball throws, jump variations, explosive kettlebell and dumbbell efforts. The idea is simple: hit powerful efforts, recover partially, and repeat. This teaches the athlete to restore output quickly and reproduce force again. Now, a couple key things with that is we have to make sure the technique stays intact and able to hit the expression that we're trying to create. But what about moderate loads, cyclical power work, right? And this is huge in mixed modal settings. This is things like repeated intervals on different monostructural devices. So ski, row, bike, barbell cycling at a load that still allows intent, thrusters, wall balls, snatches, push press, similar movements that can be performed in structured intervals. The goal is to preserve, again, speed and power qualities under accumulating fatigue. You can also do contrast and density work, which is really good. This is producing, you pair high force work with more repeatable power expressions: heavy sled push into sprints, moderate to heavier load squats into jumps, med ball throws paired with short shuffle sprints, upper body pressing built in with med ball throws. So you can get pretty creative with this as well. You can also have sport-specific repeated effort training. This is where you take the power endurance concept and apply it to the athlete's actual environment. For a fighter, this may be repeated kicks, short entries, sprawls, bag intervals, or scrambled efforts. For a field sport, this might be like repeated sprints, acceleration, change of direction patterns. For a mixed modal athlete, it might be repeated transitions between machines, cyclical work, functional movements, and gymnastics components as well. The more specific the season becomes, the more specific the expression should become. Now, here's a couple keys to programming it. One, you always have to keep the quality high. Do not let it become sloppy conditioning. Two, you have to choose the right movement. Exercise selection is extremely important. Not every movement is a great choice for power endurance work. The higher the technical demand, the more careful you need to be, or the athlete better be able to express it and do it well without having to overthink it. Under fatigue, highly technical movements can break down fast. This doesn't mean never use them. You just have to be intelligent between the selection of it and who the athlete is. You have to build the athlete first. So the athlete needs to have enough strength, enough tissue tolerance, enough aerobic support, and enough movement skill to benefit from this training. You need to manage fatigue. Power endurance is taxing, both from a mechanical and metabolic effect, right? It hits locally, systemically, and neurologically. So you have to hammer. So if you hammer it too often, too soon, or stack it on top of too much other intensity, output is going to fall and adaptation is going to drop. You really need to, the next one is define the goal. So are you trying to improve repeat sprint ability, barbell cycling power, explosive repeatable effort in Metcon, fight pace, repeated jumps? You have to determine the goal to help with the method that you're going to utilize, as well as exercise selection. Now, some common mistakes that we often see when people are going into programming power endurance. They confuse exhaustion with adaptation, right? Just because the athlete is cooked does not mean that the session is going to be effective. They use loads or movements that are too heavy or too technical. Mistake 3 is they build power endurance before building power. You cannot sustain what you cannot possess, what you don't possess. Number 4, they ignore the aerobic system. A huge part of power endurance is the ability to recover between repeated efforts. You need to have some form of engine aerobic capacity to do this. Mistake 5 is they use it year round at the same dose, right? This quality should ebb and flow depending upon the phase, the athlete, and the sport's demands. So here's like kind of like a final takeaway if I really had to simplify this. Power endurance is the ability to repeatedly express force, speed, and explosiveness under fatigue. That matters because most sports are not won by one effort. They're won by the athlete who can keep producing. You build it after laying the proper foundation. You apply it based on the needs of the athlete in the sport. And you train it by preserving output, respecting fatigue, and using the right methods at the right time. At the end of the day, this is what separates athletes who are just explosive from athletes who are dangerous for the entire event, the entire round, the entire game, or the entire workout. And that's what we want, not just power, repeatable power, not just output, sustained output, not just fitness that shows up fresh, fitness that holds when it matters. So I hope you guys found this helpful. I hope you found it informative. If you liked it, again, drop a comment, share, follow, all that cool things that people ask you to do on YouTube. I'll see you guys on the next one.